What is going on today, YouTube? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today, we're going to be talking about patch 10.9 and the notes you guys need to know before you jump into the patch. Tomorrow, this will be a really brief one. It'll probably be still pretty long because there's a lot of notes to get into. I made an entire little document to kind of go over everything, highlight everything, and you guys can just look at that if you want to just get like really brief notes that are just quickly and right in front of you. Or you can stay for the entire thing and hear my thoughts on everything. I played 30 PTS games, just about, so I know a lot about these games. I've been watching a lot also, so I know how a lot of the characters feel now. I'll be talking about a lot of them. Also, if you guys are a cool guy, make sure you guys, drop a sub for your boy. Here's the document that I wrote up. It's got buffs, nerfs, items, all the good stuff. I'll be focusing on recipes and the shaman camps a lot more tomorrow's video, talking about when to build them, what's good about them, are they good, when to do this one, all that good stuff. So you guys are curious about that. Tomorrow's video will be very informative with that. But today, we're just going to jump right into the notes quick. So the Fire Giant map layout change, it looks a lot different. You walk in from the blue buff, you get to the Fire Giant pit, and this is how it looks now. I'll have to get a few more games at like a high level to really get a good feeling with the Fire Giant pit, but it feels a lot better. It feels harder for mages to steal stuff instead of like just sitting behind a wall and then ulting it over the wall. Unless they're playing gods that are actually built for that, like Ra, Cuckoo, or Vulcan or something like that. They have to actually like walk in a little bit farther, which I like. There's this little area behind the Fire Giant pit. Somebody can hide, makes it another area you can ward. And there's a lot of places to kind of hide a bit, which I think is cool. Honestly, I love how the pit looks. It looks great. Pyro also flipped to the opposite side, so no longer is it on on mid lane side. It's now on Fire Giant side. Doesn't change too much. The one thing it does change though is again those pesky mid laners just stealing all the objectives. It makes it just a little bit harder for a lot of the non-objective secure mids to steal. Like the Ra, the Cuckoos, the Vulcans, they can still steal because they have such long range. But the gods like Scylla makes her harder to just walk up and 2-ult over the wall because you can just pull it to the Fire Giant wall. Next up, the Shaman camps. Now, the Shaman camps are a little difficult to describe because they spawn after the first spawn on solo side of the back camps. And they spawn a certain colored buff. And with that buff, every single camp will now get a totem on it that will give you an augment to that buff. So if you get the blue one and you select the blue one, you'll get 10%, red 7, green's 10, yellow 5% pen, purple's 10% attack speed. That's what it is. So right here, the green buff augment, red buff, purple buff, yellow buff, and then the blue buff had not been cleared yet. So you can't see the blue buff. But you click these, so you auto it. Right now it has the yellow augment giving 5% pen on top of the red buff, which is power. We'll go into more in depth tomorrow about the shaman's camps, the shaman buff camps things and the augments and stuff like that. But overall, really cool idea. I love it because it allows characters to build more unique stuff. Somebody pointed this out to me. I think it was Pete in my stream, but you can now get full cooldown without picking up a single cooldown item in solo lane with the warrior base 10% cooldown, a 500 pot, the blue buff augment, so blue augmented buff, and then you also get the cooldown buff. You can actually get capped cooldown without 0 cooldown items in solo lane. I don't know if that's going to change anything specifically, or maybe like junglers specifically where they come over and pick up that, but that is cool. Now you can kind of change up your builds a little bit. Maybe you don't want to go that one attack speed item because the stats are so bad, but your character kind of needs attack speed. Well, now you don't need to. You can just go to this purple camp. Stuff like that is cool. Beacons now unleash a second time, and the benefit changes from 1% movement speed to 1% power. It can stack 6 times. 6% movement speed, OP. 6% power, not as OP. And you still get the 4% damage to objectives and Unleashed Titans. And by objectives, I mean structures, not objectives. So not Fire Giant, just towers, just phoenixes. Camps, this was really notable, and I feel like it wasn't touched on too much, but buffs actually give slightly less XP and gold. And players now soloing the speed buff, this is huge. Soloing speed and splitting red will no longer... So I messed that up. You do hit level 2 on the camp if you solo the speed buff and then you split the entire red buff. The problem becomes when you try to hit level 3. You will hit level 3 slightly slower than your teammate. Your teammate will hit level 3 off the second wave. You will not. However, there might be a thing where you solo the 2 sides on red and your teammate doesn't, and then he comes up and picks the big red up and splits the big red with you, and maybe that makes it so you both hit level 3. It was a really weird change that I don't know exactly why they did it. Maybe they don't like this start, but that is what's happening. So no longer do you expect to hit level 3. Same with your ally. Recipes have now been added, and you can now cook. To gain benefits, you can get either AoE autos, procs when CC'd, additional damage when you're out of combat, 20% mitigation on next ability when you're out of combat, and then cooldown on an ability. Again, I'll go over that tomorrow. Just touched on it right now. God changes, essentially 11 buffs, but there were reworks also to 11 gods. I'll touch on all these quick. Basically, they're all really good changes that makes the character either B or C tier all the way up to at least A+ tier. None of these characters are in the bottom half of the gods anymore, and honestly, they're all up probably towards the top quarter. They're old gods, and I love the changes Hi-Rez did. Apollo gets 20% increased basic attack projectile speed, so Beautiful goes up in projectile speed and damage. Serenade now gives magical protections, and the biggest one in my opinion is you land faster and you do the same amount of damage and your ult takes less damage. I actually talked about this in a YouTube video earlier, but it's a huge change for Apollo. He feels fantastic now. Chernobog, somewhat in the same vein, another global split pusher. Crystallized Curses is now the slow ability on Chernobog. No longer is it the 3. And with that, it lands faster and it's in the air time for half the amount of time at minimum. So if you throw it at your feet, instead of 0.2 to hit the ground, it's 0.1. So it's just about instant. Also, another cool thing that it did with his 2 buff. It is now a 4-second buff at all ranks, but it's a 7-second cooldown. So it is very spammable. This is something where you fight around the buff, and then you'll have a couple seconds where you can't. And then you'll fight around the buff, and then you'll have a couple seconds that you can't. Instead of half a time where you're really strong, and then half time where you're not strong. It's a massive buff. This is a huge buff, but it makes him feel more of like a perma combat fighter instead of I want to fight with my buffs up and then back up. I like the change. It's one of the few buffs in the game that are smaller, but they come up a lot faster instead of really long and then they are disappearing for a little bit. And then Into Darkness also does a little bit more damage. Pele, probably one of the smaller ones. Pyroclast actually gives her fuel back on hitting enemies, and Volcanic Lightning, you get 1 additional hit. So you do a little bit more damage with Volcanic Lightning and you get more fuel for your 3. Overall, great quality of life change for Pele. 10 out of 10, another hit. Arachne got a huge buff. Absolutely huge. I did not think it was going to be that big, but it is massive. So the buff now lasts 4 seconds. The stun, now you only need 2 successive hits. If you stun, you continue getting the attack speed. So you get the attack speed for 4 seconds no matter what, and your stun, you only need to hit 2 autos in a row. But it only lasts 4 seconds. Huge change, massive buff to Arachne. The next one, her final point of web now gives 3 broodlings instead of 2, allowing her to do gold furies, fire giants, pyros even easier. I didn't think it was going to be that big, but it allows her something to either help tank or to just do a little bit extra damage. Massive changes to Arachne. And then lastly, Nightcrawler goes an extra 10 units. Low key, 40 units, you struggle to get over some walls. 50, you can get over just about any wall. Thoth gets 1% magical penetration per stack. Honestly, not big. This is 5% total. Is it a buff? Yes, it's not that big though. Your 1 now does 25% more damage to jungle minions. Nice, makes them clear a little bit better. Glyph of Pain, increased basic attack damage by attacking through the glyph. Goes up 10, and you get 5% of your magical power also. So it makes them slightly better for burning objectives, slightly better for burning buffs, and then a lot better for burning buffs. And then Final Judgment also goes up 10% power, and goes up 20 base damage and 10% scaling damage. Thoth will be doing like 2,500 3k damage with Mirrodin. I didn't think he needed an ult buff. I thought his ult was still smoking me off the map, but apparently he did. And now my favorite change, other than the Guardian ones, then we won't count those ones toward this, but my favorite change, Raijin now gets cooldown on autos on his non-ultimates. And then Raiju has initial damage when you're using it, so he just gets an extra 15% scaling in his entire kit and an extra 40 to 60 base damage. Kind of in the vein of Thor's 2, where he just gets extra damage in his kit. Well, Thor got an extra item proc. This is still with Raijin 2, so it does not really count as an extra proc, but you're still just getting an extra 15% magical power, which is insane. Thunder Crash is now reduced from 0.2 to 0.1 seconds on the pre-fire and setup times. And Taiko Drums, you now get passive attack speed, kind of in the same vein as Serket getting passive crit chance when she puts points into her ult. Really good. He feels great. Try Raijin. Next up, King Arthur. Steadfast, his passive is now down to 10 seconds. He only gets 3 stacks, but he gets 7.5% mitigation instead of 4%, and he gets 5 HP 5 per stack, so he gets 15 HP 5 while fighting. Battlestom's base slow now goes up from 20 to 30, so just 10% flat early, and late game it's still 40%. But this is huge. I don't think this is the ability you ever max first or second. I think this is the ability you max last. I'm not an Arthur player, so don't take my word for it. If I'm correct, this is going to be 30% slow at level 1 through all the way to, I think it's 14 when you start putting another point into your final ability. And then Twin Cleave, this is actually a bug, but it's a buff too, so they're putting it in here instead of God bugs. But it was only debuffing 7% per hit before, and now it's 10%. And then lastly, Blade Storm, really big one. This was almost a detriment for how much damage it did. It used to do 10 damage and then 30. Now it's going to be doing 15 and then 35. I'm pretty sure this hits 5 times and then the 6th time. So he's getting an extra 30 damage at level 1. 30 damage at Blade Storm's level 1. And now he won't be getting out-traded by minions with this 10 base damage. Pathetic. For the spiciest change, in my opinion, Fragmented, Osiris' passive, now gets 1% extra scaling per fragment and increases your attack speed by 20% while you're Fragmented, which is the 8 out of 8 passive. Sickle Strike also now passes through minions and damages them for 50% of the total damage. And Judgment Tether reduces attack speed by 20%. I played Osiris, and my take on him is he doesn't dominate laning phase still. I think it's more of an item thing than anything, but he is a scaling warrior now. His late game is insane with 16% mitigation here. He gets 20% mitigation on his Judgment Tether and then 20% attack speed reduction. Really good. He feels great. He still didn't feel great in the laning phase. I'm not a solo lane player, so maybe that's why I didn't feel great. But Osiris is going to be scaling monster. Good luck trying to kill him late game. That's what it comes down to. Now the juicy change. I made a video Thursday with it, so I'm not going to take too much time on this one. He gets base damage. His attack damage is going up from 1.55 to 4. Bolster defenses is giving you basic attack damage and decreased duration. No escape, you get 20% mitigation. And Shackles is going down 5 base damage at every level. Not touching on that one too much. We already know the changes. Cabrakan, same thing. Tremors now has a 3-second cooldown, but double the mana. He gets more MP5 per level. And Refraction Shield now actually gives you mana back, which is cool. I like how he plays now. Athena, no longer does her one slow. Confound now has a 30% attack speed slow. Shield Wall is now the ability that slows, and Defender of Olympus now gives 20% movement speed. I am curious how Athena will be played and if she will be played in the SPL. A meta where you're playing a dive jungler who gets Athena ulted when they go in, where they get 20% movement speed and 35% mitigation, and then Athena's help when they land. I'm scared for that. Good luck playing against a set diving you, or just some hybrid jungler like Erlang also diving you. That also is going to be doing a billion damage. Have fun. That is all the spicy changes. Taking a look at the items now on the right side. Only buffs. Mannequin Scepter is down 100 gold. Mannequin's Mace is going up 25 health and 15% attack speed. Vamp Shroud is going up 2% lifesteal, and you get 2 extra mana per minion hit. Bloodsoak Shroud, you get 85 power now, and you get 12% lifesteal, double buffing that. Sack Shroud, you're also getting from 10 to 12% lifesteal. Absolution is now 1.5 seconds of immunity on ult. Aussie's going down 50 gold, going up 5 power, and the threshold is going from 50 to 60%. That's when it procs. Divine Rune is now 2450 gold. Erosion is now 2250 gold and 40 units on the passive. Jotun's Vigor, the glyph that gives you movement speed and ability lifesteal when you get low, is now going to be a 60% threshold. Mail of Renewal is now going to be stacking only 4 times with 5 stacks instead of 5 times with 4 stacks. And the internal cooldown is also going to 45 seconds instead of 60. Onis, you're now going to be getting 4% mitigation per god instead of 3%. Toxic Blade is gaining 5 pen. Warlock Staff is gaining 50 health, and Tablet is going down 100 gold. And then lastly, touching on the god balance, Ami's passive Illuminating Strikes, where you hit somebody and then they take 10% extra damage, is going to be lasting 6 seconds instead of 5. And then while her 1 is healing her, she's going to be getting attack speed based on the points in her 1. Cuckoo's mana cost on his 1 is going down, and his 3's cooldown is down at 1 at all levels. So from 15 down to 11 is now going to be 14 down to 10. Maui's 1 is now going to be going down 2 seconds at all ranks. So now 16 down to 14 is now going to be 14 down to 12 at all ranks, which is insane. And the damage is scaling up 20 late game. It's not going to get affected early game. And then 5 level 2, 10 level 3, 15 level 4. So on and so forth. Well, I guess that's all of them. And then Mystical Alua is getting 55 mana at all ranks. Very, very spammable now. Nemesis 1 is going to be costing 50 mana at all ranks, not 50, scaling up to 90. And Slice and Dice is down 1 second and scales by 5% more. And it doubles damage in the middle, so it's 10% in the middle. Scotty is now slow immune, while movement speed buff is on her from her 3. Ymir gets base regen up by 0.05, and his 1 now scales down from 13 down to 11 instead of just 13 base. Also, just so this is a lot more obvious, this basically means he has 9 mana late game instead of 8 mana per 5 late game. Does it change much? You probably get like 200 mana back in an entire game. Like, it doesn't really change anything at all. But maybe it is game changing for one of you guys out there in 1 point in one game. Baba Yaga's ultimate damage is going to be down 5 at all ranks, and the shield scales by 60 less late game, which is crazy. Baba's shield is now 380 instead of 440. Crazy. Charon's 2 attack speed reduction is now going to be 25% instead of 30%. And his 3 is 2 seconds more rank 1, which is his dash. This is big. You level Charon's dash last. So this is 17 seconds from level 1 all the way up to level 13 when you start getting other points into the 3. Very, very big nerf to Charon and his safety. The attack speed reduction, not too bad of a nerf. He's going to be spamming it still. If he hits you with it, 25% reduction versus 30%, you're still going to be doing a lot less damage. Hachiman, still taking a weird nerf here. I didn't think he needed it, but his ult is going to be a 100-second cooldown nerf, or 100-second base cooldown instead of 90 base cooldown. Yorm's 1 tick damage is now down 5 base. So instead of 15 at level 1, it is now 10. So that first and second totem might take 0.5 seconds more. Unfortunate. Kali power from her 3 is now down from 10, scaling up to 50 at rank 5, is now 10, scaling up to 30 at rank 5. And her ult damage is down 5 at all ranks. Marty's passive used to give him 20% lifesteal. Now it is going to be 15% at max. And his 2 no longer scales down in cooldown. It used to be 13 down to 11. It is now just 11. And his ultimate scales by 4% less per tick. For 12 ticks is now 48% less. And the cooldown is also up 10. The last 2 set. His 2-1 combo does 10% less at all ranks. Used to do 60. Now it does 50. Scaling up to 70. It used to be 60, scaling up to 70. And the ult movement speed scales now 20 to 30 and not 30 at base. That is bigger. You do get points into this somewhat slow because it's an ultimate. So 20, 22.5, and 25, you'll kind of be sitting in for most of the game. And then lastly, Thor 1's base damage is down 10, meaning he should farm, at least in solo lane, slightly slower. I don't know if this brings back the meta where you put 2 points into Thor's 3 to farm a little bit more efficiently, but Thor's 1 will be doing slightly less, and his ult also scales by 10% less. Like I said, big patch. Usually something like this wouldn't take too long, but I wanted to touch on things. There was a lot of changes, a lot of big things that changed with how the game is played, but hopefully you guys are now caught up a little bit. The sheet will just be something you can pause on also, so you can always just check back to see what the changes were. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. Say, great video, Bobby. I love the bear. I love the bear too. Like I said, see you boys. Have a good rest of your day.